My name is Troy Bravenmore. I'm a local businessman of Hillsborough County, and I'm excited to see your exploration in digital readers in school. I just want to let you know I oppose CAIR speaking in our public school systems because it's a threat against our children and ultimately our nation and our freedom. Sharia-compliant theologian preaches that fundamentalist Islam wishes to destroy all states, governments, anywhere on the face of this earth which are opposed to the ideology and program of fundamentalist Islam, regardless of the country or the nation which rules it, end quote. The bottom line is that the goal of Sharia law is to become the law of the land. CAIR promotes Sharia in America and tries to downplay its negative aspects. In fact, CAIR is one of the organizations that poses as a moderate and uses a stealth or cultural jihad, as other people have said, to achieve their objectives. So simply put, once fundamentalist Muslims replace enough of the population of any country, the non-believers will lose their nation, their culture, their laws, their land, and their fundamental human rights. The only difference between CAIR and violent groups like Hamas and Al-Qaeda are their tactics and their timing. However, their desired goals are exactly the same, and that is the imposition of Sharia law and the establishment of a global fundamentalist Islamic state. I realize that raising these goals of radical Islam is not popular or politically correct in a culture today, exactly because of the flood of propaganda insisting that fundamentalist Islam is merely another religion. But extreme Islam's most basic tenets and goals is at its core a nullification of our Constitution, and as such, a single greatest threat to America that it has ever seen. In a court of law where it takes the voice of two women to equal that of a man, and to denounce a faith is to accept death, seems to oppose the Constitution, which instituted to ensure our equal rights. However, it's all commonplace under Sharia law. Oil and water would be a good analogy. However, with our extreme tolerance, maybe host and parasite might serve better. To summarize, we are left with a choice to dismiss or address the reality of this threat. And I ask that you urgently place this item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah, baby.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the school board today. I'm from Jacksonville. I was invited here to speak today because I have a vast knowledge of Sharia law, the Islamic movement in America, and the Muslim Brotherhood. We're not here to condemn or even to chastise this board because we've all failed to protect our kids. Us as parents, the community, the board, the whole education system. We've allowed groups like Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, and even Al-Qaeda to actually not even influence our children, but to write policy. I ask you, how is it that Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, an Al-Qaeda operative who's now serving 23 years in federal prison, as our financier for Al-Qaeda, wrote the public school guidelines with the ACLU under the Clinton administration? The same man was also the Islamic ambassador to Muslims in America under the Bush administration. How is it that the Council on Islamic Education's founder, Shabir Mansouri, said, quote, "I am waging a bloodless revolution in America's classrooms," writes, his organization writes and puts almost all Islamic content in virtually every book used across this nation now? How is it that that same organization in ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, are two of the 17 groups who approved the teacher's guide on religion in the classroom? In ISNA, along with CAIR and NATE, the North American Islamic Trust, which holds the deed to 7 out of 10 mosques and Islamic centers in America, were the ones that actually wrote that and are co-conspirators in the same trial and tried to have their name removed 3 times. We have a problem. We've all failed to protect our children. It's time that we stood up, all of us, and said no to Al-Qaeda. We said no to the Muslim Brotherhood. We say no to Hamas, and it's time to protect our children because the cultural jihad that's being waged in America is for the hearts and minds of our children. The enemy knows they cannot defeat us with a kinetic war. They are beating us in an information battle space by attacking our foundational institutions, our education system, our churches, our media, including our governments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kimberly Kelly.
Hi, my name is Amanda Gates. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am against the Council on American Islamic Relations to be taught in our school system. I am a mother, and my husband and I will not be putting our child in the public school system because, quite frankly, there is a reputation that certain propaganda is allowed to be taught in the schools. My concern is for other children, and my concern is for the direction of this country. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Bill Korak, publisher of the Report Card and producer of the Report Card television news show with a focus on curriculum reform in our public schools. Our editorial policy supports teaching American exceptionalism, the contribution of our Judeo-Christian heritage onto American law, and the supremacy of the Constitution as the law of the land. We oppose CAIR speaking in public schools because CAIR is an arm of the multi-headed hydra of Islamic organizations. If that were not bad enough, CAIR advocates replacing our Constitution with Islamic or Sharia law. The co-founder of CAIR, Omar Ahmed, said, and I quote, "Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant. The Quran should be the highest authority in America, and Islam the only accepted religion on earth." This is the CAIR co-founder. So CAIR wants Islam to be dominant, thus violating the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. CAIR wants to replace the Constitution with Sharia law. There is no way that both can coexist in this country. So I have to ask, are there standards for selecting organizations that are allowed to go in the schools and speak? Sadly, Sadly, the National Assessment of Educational Progress says that only 12% of high school seniors in America have a firm grasp of our nation's history. Do we really need to have CAIR coming in when we have so much work to do on our own heritage? Thank you.
The Hillsborough County School mission is to educate and create good citizens. Just what kind of citizen are you trying to create? That goal is an admirable goal. Question is, when Hassan Shibly came in to speak about CAIR and Islam and Steinbrenner High School, what was his knowledge, his background, his credentials that allows him to speak to a world history class? Is his degree in history, Muslim faith? Is he a cleric? No. He is a political science major. So tell me, what was he exactly promoting when he went in there? Since CAIR is teaching and promotes Sharia law, which conflicts with the U.S. Constitution, and their goal is to establish Sharia law in the U.S. through the CAIR system. Is this what we need to have taught to our impressionable children? Let me ask you this, good Lord. Was he screened through SERV? That's your organization, it's on your website. Why is he allowed to promote his political viewpoint, lifestyle viewpoint, or religious viewpoint, which is specifically stated on the school board website, SERV, that this is prohibited? Look under the school board guidelines and policies. I believe knowledge should be given on all levels of history, but where there is nobody who is invited to speak other than Mr. Shibly with CAIR until it was made public that an invite came forth to others. When you expose the children to an organization that defends terrorism, where do we go from here? How do we ensure that rules are followed for all? That the people who speak to our students do not promote Islamic terrorism, Sharia law, but instead promote correct historical facts and knowledge to our students, not another way of life.
Thank you. I know we have board member comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To all of the speakers here tonight, I just want to thank you for exercising your right to come before this board and carry out your civic duties. Specifically to the speakers on CAIR, I've heard talk of Hamas, potential political agendas, and America's Western identity. You've given me some enlightening information to give thought to, and I welcome the opportunity to discuss this issue as an official agenda item.